So the next step is to jump into the stern and make the sawn frames back there, and it's going to be the same exact process as we did for the stem. So we'll spring the ribbons, we'll pull up the patterns, and we'll start in the very stern where it's narrowest and work towards the bow and get those 3 frames put in.
Just as we did with Arabella's 3 sawn frames in the stem, we began in the stern by placing the crossbars and the patterns. The crossbars help keep the patterns right where we want them to be, and once those are set up, we stapled on the points to mark the pattern. It turned out that we didn't quite mark enough points to make the curve work. We decided it was better to start over. And after putting up a few more ribbons, we went through the marking process again. Restarting would be far less painful now than later for sure. I started cutting out the patterns for the 2 sets of frames we were working on first, and we had some bandsaw help from Nevin, who was volunteering for the day.
Let's see what we can find. Alright, so first order of business, we're going to shuffle from that side to this side. And just start digging down over there and see if we can find any that will work.
After being picked over for the previous sawn frames, we had to go all the way down to find the good options. Reorganizing the pile was an overdue task that we gave a big chunk of the day to getting sorted out once again.
Get a nice fulcrum. Boom. Got one. Let's go find more. Let's have to explain that. Got cool. 2. So that's the 2 big ones. Now all we have to do is find the 2 small ones.
From here, we roughed out the shapes on the big bandsaw, and then ran all the pieces through the thickness planer before redrawing the lines and cutting them out. I'm marking the points on these frames that we will end up cutting to make the changing bevels. We connect the points with a batten, and that shows us what we will need to remove.
We're back here on the stern working on the sawn frames, and we're about ready to weld up the bronze floors. So we have to pick up the angle between the stern timber and the vertical frames. And on the stem, that was a little bit trickier because the stem is curved. So if we moved the frame up or down on the stem ever so slightly, it would be a different angle, and every single bronze floor up there was a slightly different angle. But back here on the stern, this is a nice straight run. So the angles for both of them, because the frames stand vertically, are going to be the same. So this one is much easier to pick up. So we can literally just go anywhere we want on here. Put the bevel gauge on. Stand up our level. And lock the bevel gauge. Now we have our angle. We'll just go set another one to this, and same process as before. Go weld them up on the table, give them a clean, and we'll be ready to install. While I work on the metal work, Alix and Ahmed are going to work on getting the bevels cut on the bottom of the frames. So hopefully by the time they're done, I'll be done, and we can put both in here for a test fit.
After a few adjustments from the first fit, Ahmed, who was visiting us from Egypt, helped Steve clamp them into the boat again.
Okie dokie.
The first two frames needed a little bit of work still, but I needed to find material to start cutting out the last pair. While I got started on that, Steve and Ahmed started working on building an outdoor rack for the Cedar planking stock. So I've been working on these Sawn frames back here that are going to sit on the stern post, and the very last one here is a little bit strange. So you can see the inner stern post comes in over here, and the edge of our frame is actually going to sit right here and then coming up along the stern here. So I need to figure something out here. I think what we're going to do is notch this out and then get this back in a straight line so that the floor can sit here on a flat spot, and then the Sawn frame can just go straight up from here and have the angle of the stern post. So I got to figure out how to shave this down, and then we're going to put that angle in the Sawn frames that we just made, and then we'll see about making that floor and get these all in here. I toyed with the idea of using the Japanese saws and chisels to get this done, but I didn't get too far before plunging in with the power planer. So we're back in the stern. I didn't quite finish the adjustment up here on the stern post for the next frame. So while I work on this and finishing that up, Steve went to go run some errands. He's running to the bank and to a couple of stores to grab some stuff. So while he's doing that, I am going to get Ahmed to actually cut off the wings down here that we have to do, and that'll create the limber holes that we need back here in the stern. So the water's not necessarily going to stay on the stern post, it's probably going to come in down where the planking is. So if we cut those wings off down here, that'll give a place for the water to run down into the bilge, and then down there we'll have a bilge pump. So let's get to work on that.
Oh, okay. Like this whole chunk is going out?
Yeah.
From here too.
So what we're going to do is clamp them together, and then you can just cut the one mark.
Oh, alright.
And that way they'll automatically both be the same. So it was a bit of a tough spot to work in, but I got this surface nice and flattened out. So this is where the base plate for the floor is going to sit, and the frame is going to sit right up in here at a vertical. So what I need to do now is catch this angle with the vertical so that I can cut that on the frames that I worked on yesterday, and those will sit right in here, held in by the floor, and then we're good to go. We just got to paint all of this, put some dolphinite in, and install everything.
That's toy.
The first two frames we tried still needed a bit more work, but the last one was ready to go. So while I worked on the adjustments to the two sets of frames, everyone else went outside and began filling up the new cedar rack with the material that's been drying in the garage. Although this may seem like a very unconventional way of storing lumber, Cedar is able to handle this setup, and this is a very typical way of keeping cedar here. The airflow between the boards keeps it dry, and it is a much easier way of sorting material than in a vertical stack.
Watch your head.
You'd probably be the first one to bump your head on that. I did it this morning.
Oh yeah.
Not bad.
Finally get a garage back.
Yeah, a little bit of a mess to clean up. I'm trying to figure out exactly
What to do?
how and what and where.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a wrap. So all of the sawn frames are in the stem and in the stern. We did 3 in the stem and 3 in the stern. And we did the sawn frames up there just because they're so short and straight and they have so much shape fore and aft that it just made more sense to saw them. So we got those made and their bronze floors are in. So that means that all that is missing for Arabella's framing is 7 pairs of bent frames, and those will go in after the planking. And the reason we can't put them in right now is because these molds are in the way. And the molds are really important still because they're really defining the shape of the boat. The bent frames, there's still a little give and flex to them. So if we were to take the molds out now, we would start to lose that shape as we wrap the planks around. So once the planking's done, we can take these molds out and we'll pop in those last few pairs of bent frames. So now that the sawn frames are done, we've got a couple little things to wrap up, and then we can start hanging all the cedar planks.